You're listening to Co-Parenting with Grace, the podcast for families raising kids across two homes. I'm your host, Jodi Grace, wife, bonus mom, professional peacekeeper, and your teammate in this beautiful work of co-parenting. So put that red lipstick on, Grace family, and let's get into it. Welcome back, Grace family. Can you believe this is our final episode of season 1? I know, here I am, a day late and a dollar short. That's just who I am. My boys had a birthday this week, so I am coming to you a day late, but it is not with any less heart. This dream became more than just what I thought of. When I sat down with my husband the week before Mother's Day, we were sitting around the dining table just having a little heart-to-heart chat, and we were talking about what it would take for me to really do this, to really start a podcast and to be vulnerable in telling my story, the healing it would take, that it would require with our own co-mother and her with me, with us. Reaching out to people and asking for them to come on and be vulnerable with me, to share their expertise. And most of these conversations were had right here at my dining room table with sweaty palms, a lukewarm cup of coffee, and a prayer, no doubt. But I had no idea what this little dream. I just knew I wanted to create a space for honest conversation about what a blended family is and can be, co-parenting and all the hard shit that goes with it, and giving ourselves some grace along the way. And somehow, here we are. We have laughed, we have cried, and we have healed and learned. So before we close out this first season, I want to look back on some of the lessons that really stuck with me, and maybe with you too. So when I started with my own story, it wasn't hard for me to share that with you because I had prepared to be open and honest with you all about who I am, where I came from, and how I got here. Being an open book is something that I've always been. But I never imagined how many of you would show up, would listen, and see yourselves in different parts of this story. And I'm talking thousands of you. And your responses have been so overwhelming in the most beautiful way. It tells me that this topic, this conversation that we are having is so needed. There is room for it. So I have never felt so seen, and I hope that that is what you took from this too. That even through our different paths, even though mine may look a little different than yours, that you can see yourself in someone else's shoes and someone in yours, if we just allow ourselves to look and to feel. So hearing your feedback and parts of your own stories is exactly why I started this podcast in the first place, to build a space where blended families, women and men alike, co-parents, or anyone involved in raising a child that they share with other adults could feel understood and not so alone. One of my favorite podcasts myself and one of the most listened to this season was Dr. Sherry Shandy, child psychiatrist. He brought wisdom that still echoes in my home. He reminded us that consistency isn't control, it's security. It's exactly what our kids need, especially for kids navigating two households. I think of this every time we're deciding on routines or screen time or bedtime. It's those little moments that tell our kids their world is safe and they are loved. My sister Taylor, my best friend, having her as my hype girl early on just made this thing easier and more fun. It made me so excited for what was to come this season. She brought heart and the humor that we all needed and told us that behind every title, mom, stepmom, dad, stepdad, co-parent, that there's just a human trying to do their best. I cannot wait to sit down with her this next season and let her share even more parts of her own parenting journey as both a married mother, a divorced single mother, and someone who's navigating co-parenting and dating on the other side of that. So she will without a doubt remind us that grace starts at home, and sometimes, for both of us, it starts with your sister. So our kids' principal, Megan, what a wonderful time I had sitting down with her. She had the school's perspective. She helped us understand how teachers and administrators are just partners in this co-parenting world. They are our teammates, especially when communication between homes is complicated. Her practical advice tells us that we're all on the same team when it comes to our kids' emotional safety. Now, let's talk about Greg Aldridge. Gosh, I know you guys loved hearing Greg. I knew you would. That's one of the reasons that I reached out to him to hear his story on being a child of divorce and what it was like to grow up with that constant transition. Recording this episode was almost spiritual for me, and I hope you're hearing this, Greg. My dear friend, one who I haven't gotten a chance to spend much time with in recent years. So for me, this conversation was years in the making, and I could have listened and talked for hours, without a doubt. He's, one who grew up, like I said, as a child of divorce. He gave us a perspective from the child's point of view and talked about what it felt like as a kid to move between homes and how he wished the adults could have seen that the weight of some of those life changes cost him something emotionally. His story gave me a whole new level of compassion and responsibility for our boys and what they carry between houses. Now, Dr. Ashley Smith, a friend I didn't even know I needed or that was there, this conversation was an absolute therapy session for me. And from your feedback too, it struck the same chord. She joined us and talked about anxiety. And I'm not talking about for our kids, but for us adults, the adults who keep all the plates spinning. She helped us understand how our calm nervous systems can become the anchor for our children. And she had so many points that stopped me. But the one big takeaway that I had was that the most important and powerful thing a parent can model is self-regulation, not perfection. I cannot wait to further that conversation with her, hopefully in season 2. She just has a plethora of usable information and knowledge. I then dove into the stepmom episode and how society views them. That was an episode I almost didn't do. I thought, gosh, they've heard my perspective, but that one had such good feedback. And I think it's so important to keep that conversation moving forward. Are we the villains like the Disney movies say we are? Or is there room for us to change that narrative? I know there is. But it takes spaces like this, talking about the hard moments, the uncomfortable conversations that are needed to make that happen. And I am happy to be the vessel to navigate those waters. Now, Craig Ritchie, attorney at law, what a great insight that conversation was. His episode, Is Legal Always Logical? That opened our eyes to how the legal system doesn't always match the emotional reality of families. Craig reminded us that to approach co-parenting not as a battlefield, but a mission field, a place to serve, not to win. Chad the dad, my friend and fellow insurance agent, in our Two Hats, One Heart episode, Chad's honesty about being both a biological dad and a stepdad was so powerful to me. As someone who only has stepchildren, it's so interesting to have that conversation with me about how somebody with biological children balances that. He really brought home that it's not about dividing love. It's about multiplying it. And that stuck with me. And honestly, it was something that we had already been working on, or I had, in practicing in my own home this year. And he didn't even know it. But kids can use all the love. We can be our own thing in our kids' lives. Mom is mom, dad is dad, and you as the step parent, you are just that. You are you. I am Jodi, and my role is just as important and vital. I am my own thing in my kids' lives. Now let's do a little debrief on the last 2 episodes. How about it? With my co-parent, Kelly. You guys loved hearing those conversations. And I had no doubt that people would tune in, to hear that kind of tea. But wow, you guys showed up for that one. And I think it's because it's rare to hear two women, who've had the past that we do, or share the tension that we have, even if it was an underlying tension. I think it's rare that we could sit down and be self-aware and talk about what was hard for each of us face to face. Now, I can't say that was easy. I would be lying if I did. The first conversation, of course, the beginning was really tough. Kelly and I both talked about that later on, about how talking about the early days was like looking back on a breakup that you'd already gotten over. So it was hard to even relate to some of those feelings that we shared at that time. But as humans, when you bring up the tough past, it can lead to some self-doubt. It stirs up some old feelings. And we had many of conversations off the mic where we had to reassure, support one another and encourage each other. And we still do. And I'm just so thankful that she and I are in a place where we can do that. I say that to her a lot, or to anyone who will listen when I'm talking about where she and I are at. I'm so thankful that even, for instance, with my boy's birthday being this week, looking at pictures of their birth was something that was hard for me, because it was something that I longed for so much, especially with this man. I longed to have children of my own. I longed to have my husband's children, and that got to happen for someone else. And so this week, for the first time I guess this is 5 years, I was able to say, hey, I would love to see the pictures of their birth. I would love to see, pictures of you guys holding them right after they were born. And that's something that would have hurt for me in years past. And I think it speaks volumes to the healing that I have done, and the healing that this space that I'm speaking in right now has allowed for me to continue that healing. And both of those conversations that she and I had were raw and redemptive. We shared tears, laughter, and some serious vulnerability. I think it gave a lot of listeners hope that healing is possible, even between two people who once stood on opposite sides. Now, we know that your story isn't going to look exactly like ours. Some of you might have even listened and thought, oh, they don't even know what hard is. And we certainly don't claim to. Our journey is just that. It's ours, and yours is yours. But we hope it gives you the courage to start somewhere. Reach out. Be the one who's brave enough to make that first move. Or just share this episode or one of our episodes with your co-parent. Let the story do some of the talking. And it's definitely not the last you will hear from Kelly and I together, I can assure you. We want to dive deeper into more of these topics now that you have context on who we are and what our ongoing journey looks like. Now, I have to take just a second and laugh a little bit about some of the blunders this season and the learning that I have done sitting behind this microphone. There were episodes recorded where my dog barked the entire time, kids yelling, mics unplugged, and at least one where I realized halfway through I wasn't even recording. So, next season, I swear I'm going to work on a blooper reel. I learned so many things about the podcasting world, most of it the hard way first. But that's just what makes this thing real. It's real. Literally, my husband just stuck his head in and asked if the leftovers in the fridge were still good. And I had to stop and start over. It's like, that's what this is. And that's what I wanted it to be, is such a real space for you to see exactly who I am. I'm open, I'm honest. And I hope that you have taken that from my episodes this season. It's not about being polished perfection. Lord, we'll call it messy grace. That should be my nickname. But that's exactly what it was supposed to be. So what is next for co-parenting with Grace? Season 2 is already shaping up to be incredible. I can't wait. We are going to dive into some deeper topics like keeping intimacy alive in a marriage while co-parenting, co-parenting after infidelity, navigating high conflict situations without losing your peace, and even talking about personal trauma and the different ways that you can deal with that. You know, there are so many different methods, you know, from therapy to medication to even psychedelics. So I am excited to dive into that conversation. Dr. Sherry Shandy will be back for a new episode, and I know that you guys benefited from his first conversation. So keeping rules consistent across homes, but definitely diving more into screen time and the effect that that has on our kids. I can't wait to introduce some of our brand new guests who are walking through real life co-parenting challenges. A guest who grew up with a step-parent that she loved deeply. And of course, every Thursday, I'm going to sprinkle in those Give Yourself Grace reminders. I'm going to keep that going during the off season because Lord knows we all need that weekly pick-me-up. But the feedback that you all have given me has been so heartwarming. A couple weirdos here and there, but I think that's to be expected when you put yourself out like I have. But the one thing I heard the most was that you enjoyed my calming voice. Most of you don't know that I am a singer as well, so I take that as a huge compliment. But because of that, you encouraged me to take the plunge on something else that's been stirring in my heart. So new next week, during my off season, will be my children's bedtime podcast called Tales of Grace. The first season is the Nightlight Series. It will release an episode every Tuesday, starting November the 4th. However, if you want VIP access, where you can download the entire library ad-free and have access to bonus content, holiday stories, and classic chapters that will be coming soon, then check in at the link below in the show notes. It is talesofgrace.supercast.com. If you join between now and November 4th, you will receive 25% off of your entire first year membership. You can sign up monthly, annually, whatever works best for you. But tune in weekly for free or become a member today and get the first 3 episodes immediately. My boys were part of my test audience, and they have absolutely loved it. I have one that already asks for a story nightly, so no pressure. But I hope you guys enjoy it as much as they have. I would love if you would take some time to reach out to me, email me, message me on socials. I want to know what you want to hear in season 2, and even as I'm planning season 3. Do you want more from the guests that we have already had? Is there something specific you wanted to hear from them? Do you want to hear us dive into a more particular topic? Do you have an idea for a guest? Please let me know. This podcast is for us to continue growing and building a community that is safe to be who we are and to save space for whatever part of the journey we are in. So before I say see you next time, and I will, season 2 is coming in January, I want to say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing these episodes, sending messages, and letting me know how this podcast has met you right where you are. Every download, every comment, every prayer has meant the world to me. Keep sharing it with the people you know will benefit from it. If this season has shown you anything, I hope it's this. There is peace when you lead with grace. You are not alone, and you are a part of this Grace family, a community built on love, learning, and second chances. Until next time, and until next season, I hope you'll always remember, you are doing better than you think. Always. I'm Jodi, and this is Co-Parenting with Grace.